Today, for our sermon, I am going to read a book called Wilbur. And Wilbur is this book about a sheep who wants to figure out how to incorporate his creativity within the larger group. And so this is going to be a little bit of a technological feat. So please bear with me as I try to share my screen and read the book all at the same time. So I hope you enjoy this. I've read this at least twice with the Joyful Noise group because they absolutely love it. And we get a kick out of it. So I hope you will too. Now I hope you can read it and see it. Here we are. Wilbur by Leslie Helikoski, illustrated by Lee Harper. Wilbur had a little trouble with the herd today, said Ma. What happened? Said Pa. I don't want to stand still with the sheep, said Wilbur. I ran with the dogs instead. But those dogs are half wild, said Pa. I know, said Wilbur. Isn't it great? They'll run circles around you, said Ma. I know, said Wilbur. Isn't it great? Don't worry, said Grandpa. But Ma and Pa pulled their wool all night long. Wilbur had a little trouble in the shearing barn today, said Ma. What happened? Asked Pa. I didn't want to shear my wool, said Wilbur. Being woolly feels nice. But it's springtime, said Pa. I know, said Wilbur. Isn't it great? Your wool is so long, said Ma. I know, said Wilbur. Isn't it great? Don't worry, said Grandpa. But Ma and Pa pulled their wool all night long. Wilbur had a little trouble carding wool today, said Ma. What happened? Said Pa. I carded my own wool, said Wilbur. No more tangles. But sheep don't card on their own bodies, said Pa. I know, said Wilbur. Isn't it great? You look so different, said Ma. I know, said Wilbur. Isn't it great? Don't worry, said Grandpa. But Ma and Pa pulled their wool all night long. Wilbur had a little trouble spinning today, said Ma. What happened? Asked Pa. I rode around on the spinning wheel, said Wilbur. It was fun. But spinning's not supposed to be fun, said Pa. I know, said Wilbur. Isn't it great? Your yarn is all loopy, said Ma. I know, said Wilbur. Isn't it great? Don't worry, said Grandpa. But Ma and Pa pulled their wool all night long. Wilbur had a little trouble dyeing wool today, said Ma. Oh, what happened? Asked Pa. Instead of dyeing the yarn, I dyed myself, said Wilbur. I like experimenting. You look unbelievable, said Pa. I know, said Wilbur. Isn't it great? It will never wash out, said Ma. I know, said Wilbur. Isn't it great? Oh, don't worry, said Grandpa. But Ma and Pa pulled their wool all night long. Wilbur had a little trouble weaving today, said Ma. What happened? Said Pa. I put my head in the loom, said Wilbur, to weave my forelock. But that's not what you were shown, said Pa. I know. Isn't it great? It's unheard of, said Ma. I know. Isn't great? Don't worry, Grandpa. But Ma and Pa pulled their wool all night long. Finally, Ma and Pa took Wilbur aside and said, "You must follow the flock, dear. That's what sheep do. From now on, you will stay with the herd like everyone else. You will shear wool like everyone else. You will card wool like everyone else. You will spin wool like everyone else. You will dye wool like everyone else. You will weave wool like everyone else." "Oh," said Wilbur. And he thought all night long. And from then on, he taught everyone to run with the dogs, to let their wool grow, to card their own wool, to spin crazy yarn, to experiment with color, to weave their forelocks. And Ma and Pa put their heads in their hooves and sighed. "Wilbur does not think like we do," said Ma. "I know," said Pa. "Now everyone looks like Wilbur and acts like Wilbur," said Ma. "I know," said Pa. "How will we ever find him?" "Don't worry," said Grandpa. The end. I love that book. I love that book because it shows the creativity that an individual can be and how that creativity can spread into a whole community. In Paul's reading from in Paul's letter to the Romans, he says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by renewing your minds so that you may discern what is the will of God." And we all have many, many members of our community. Some of them might be a little different than others. Some might be a little bit differently creative, much like Wilbur, but we as a community are to embrace that creativity and to go with it. Sometimes it feels like we can be Ma and Pa worried about Wilbur and what he might lead us into. Others might look at it and say, "Isn't it great?" And so today, I ask for us as a community of God to lean into our creativity and our sense of being a community all at the same time, that they don't need to be either or situations. They can be both and. And so may we all run and jump with the dogs like Wilbur and dye our own hair and think of new and creative ways of spreading God's love in our world. I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I do with Lori, Reverend Lori, and all of our Joyful Noise kids. And I hope that it brings a little bit of joy into your morning this morning. Amen.